Jubilee has just released a fresh episode of Middle Ground, a YouTube show that brings together folks from opposing viewpoints, such as trans versus detrans or police versus criminals, encouraging them to empathize and seek common ground. The focus of their recent episodes, you guessed it, liberal gays versus conservative gays. Can I afford to let this slip through my fingers? Absolutely not. So this is what we're gonna be reacting to. So we've got a mix of liberal and conservative gay voices in the house, ready to dish out their takes on today's sizzling issues. First up on the docket, the gay community is oversexualized. The agreeers, both from the liberal and conservative groups, step forward and share their opinions on the issue. And we've got two liberal gays and, predictably, all four from the conservative group, who agree that the gay community is oversexualized. Samantha's not conservative, by the way. So this is a very interesting question, isn't it? Let's check what they've got to say on the topic. Oh, hi, by the way, Samantha's here and welcome back to my channel.
The gay community, because, it's based off of our sexual attraction, it has a very easy time going into a space that's all about sex. To me, being gay is a lot more than who I sleep with. The movement used to be about love, but then you go to a pride parade now and you're seeing old men with their genitals out.
I've only been to one gay pride in my life. That was in 2011 in New York City, and everything was decent, what most people would consider decent and appropriate. And I must say I didn't personally witness any older guys exposing themselves. Then in my mid to late 20s, when I already came back from the US to the country where I'm originally from, I sometimes encountered some off-the-scale videos on the internet. Those videos were from the pride events held in the US, and at that time, I found them to be quite excessive. I used to think this is probably too much. I used to be a Protestant. My interest revolved around things like spirituality, soul, and I also believe that some of the things happening at the pride events were inappropriate. So I could somewhat understand where this conservative gay guy Clarkson is coming from. What I completely don't understand is this argument by a conservative dude Mario.
And the over-sexualization is apparent in the apps that we can get. I mean, you can literally have sex on demand, or you could find it in a location wherever you want.
Like, he literally listed some of the advantages the gay dating apps have, and he's trying to present them as some evil. You can literally have sex on demand. Oh my god, that's inappropriate. What's so bad about having sex on demand? Isn't it good when there is this opportunity? I mean, apparently all of these guys have never lived in truly conservative countries and places across the globe where you cannot find anyone on the dating app to go on a hookup with. Because everyone's so closeted, everyone is shy to talk about what they want in bed. I mean, of course, there's nothing bad about going on dates, getting to know each other better, and all that vanilla stuff. What if that's just not what I want in the phase I'm going through? I mean, if you're going through a stage where you only search for hookups, that's okay. See, I tried to go on dates, I did my best. I'm not fucking interested in those people. There's literally nothing to talk about with them. So why not confine yourself to a hookup, which is a mutual desire, by the way. Why pretend to be nicer, make it seem as though you're invested in the conversation, Oh, that's just because this conservative dude says it's inappropriate.
Certain businesses are actually keeping doors open because men are having sexual relations in the bathrooms, and that's inappropriate. I mean, we want our privacy too, just like women.
Oh my goodness, what is he talking about? Saunas? Well, darling, if you're not in the mood for a steamy encounter, maybe skip the sauna. And as for gay nightclubs, sweetie, I believe those places are meant for adults to let loose and have a good time, aren't they? But honestly, bad behavior is not exclusive to gay clubs. It happens in regular nightclubs too, for you to know. So maybe it's time for him to trade in the dance floor for a night at the theater. A little less bump and grind, a little more Shakespeare.
And now we can't even have our privacy because a small sect of men ruin it for us. And now we can't even have our privacy.
Hi honey, what are you up to? Nothing. I just need some privacy. I was thinking of heading to a nightclub. Privacy at a nightclub? Well, that's the new level, darling. Count me in for this.
That was really frustrating too. When I came out the closet, it was like I had this innate pressure, like, oh, I have to download Grindr, I have to be super sexualized.
Oh, I see. It's like they give you a welcome to the LGBTQ plus club pamphlet, and the first page just says, download Grindr. Oh, I forgot, we get a membership card with explicit instructions. Swipe left here, right there, and remember to add glitter to your profile pic. We're the secret society of fabulousness, and the password is love, but make it sexy.
I was able to go to Portugal, and there was this queer retreat, and it was like the first time I felt like safe and secure as a queer person because it wasn't sexual, and I could have there's these relationships with queer men, but there's no expectation to be sexual.
In all seriousness, Zane's perspective is interesting. I'm not joking here. I mean, I haven't heard anything about queer people whose goal is to feel safe and secure as queer people because everything around is over-sexualized. No, I mean, I've heard about it in the context of asexuality probably. Like, I guess, genuine asexuals or okay, just asexuals aren't too thrilled about the pervasive over-sexualization in our society. So maybe Zane falls under the asexual umbrella, a topic I'm admittedly not well versed in. I mean, it's all rather unfamiliar to me. I'm probably on the other side. However, what's evident is that anyone who falls under the asexual umbrella would likely oppose this alleged over-sexualization and would state that, yeah, everything's bad about those poor old guys thrusting their crotches at the pride events. What's also unfortunate, girl, is that Zane, if we assume he does fall under the asexual umbrella, has captured my attention. I mean, this guy's totally my type, but we're not talking about my physical preferences in this video. What's even more interesting is that just because I'm physically attracted to him, I find myself more inclined to pay close attention to what he's saying compared to others. Which is an age-old truth, something Dale Carnegie wrote about ages ago, listing sexual gratification or schmecks in general, alongside desires for food, sleep, money and power, as one of the key principles all humans are guided by. See, I bet after you watch this episode of Middle Ground, probably your heart has also been stolen by this picture-perfect liberal gay guy Barrett. His striking beauty aligns closely with the beauty standards, making it impossible to ignore what he has to say. I mean, it's really hard for majorities, I guess, not to be captivated by someone so incredibly beautiful. He's not my type, Barrett, I mean, but I do realize he's like the beauty standard. In a short while, we'll have a look at what he has to say on the second issue raised today, which is pride is still necessary. This topic is, by the way, closely linked to our first discussion, the gay community is over-sexualized, so let's check it out. And here's what the conservative guy is saying on the topic.
Yeah, I think pride's necessary, but we need a PR revamp.
And why do you think he's saying we need a rebrand? Right, because in his opinion, today's pride events are over-sexualized, and he has a problem with that.
I take a lot of issues with what I see at pride parades now, just because, you know, as we've discussed previously, I think that it's a little bit over-sexualized. We're celebrating essentially sex rather than love, and we have people running around riding bikes with their balls out in front of kids.
Well, I've got to hand it to this conservative guy here. He's really keeping an eye out for those balls out bicycle riders. I mean, isn't it a bit amusing that he seems to have a magnifying glass for the tiniest glimpses of skin?
It's the fact that it is allowed because we have this shield of it's pride, don't mess with gay people because of our history, which is granted, but people are afraid to look at our culture and say that's not acceptable, because if straight people were walking around doing that, it would be a totally different discussion.
So this guy is unhappy about the indecent and ungodly, probably, gays with their balls out at pride events. You know, it's all about courage, really. Those people, they do have the audacity to say we're here, we're proud, and we're not afraid and not ashamed to show it. Imagine pride paraders were all dressed in priest's garments instead of the fabulous and daring outfits, striding down the streets, swinging censers, and blessing everyone with holy water during the pride parade. That would indeed be a sight to see, yeah? Alright, I might be exaggerating, but you know what? Modest pride paraders with a handful of reserved, timid gay guys and lesbians casually strolling the streets with their posters. And this is what pride events really look like in Eastern Europe, say in Poland, for instance. It's more like trying to get a cat to take a bath. These paraders seem a bit shy, almost as if they're afraid of unleashing the same exuberance as their counterparts across the pond. Their posters may boldly declare pride out loud, but the reality falls a bit short in terms of volume, shall we say. In all seriousness, what we see in some parts of the US, where paraders are extremely open about expressing their sexuality, is precisely what we need, in my humble opinion. It's like our superpower, and we've got that balls out confidence to own it, and there's literally nothing to be ashamed of.
Looking at specific things with a level of shame, and then have to look at like where are we shameful within ourselves, and why is that something that we should be ashamed of in general? Like, why is nudity shameful in general?
That is so true.
I agree with you about nudity itself is not sexual. I don't think so. 'Cause I have been into new places, and it's not sexual, but when you make it sexual, that's the problem. It can be indecent exposure at some of these things, and Pride needs to not be complacent and address it.
Zane's perspective on nudity being non-sexual itself is straightforward and makes sense. He believes that non-sexual nudity is acceptable, but when it's sexualized, that's where the issue arises, according to Zane. However, I'm not sure this is what Barrett was trying to say. He said, why are we shameful within ourselves, and why is that something we should be ashamed of in general? Like, doesn't Barrett's statement seem to suggest a broader perspective? In my opinion, it's not only about private parts being aroused or not, or being shown or not, it's about accepting and embracing diverse forms of attraction. I am not only attracted to other people's private parts. I may find their necks very appealing, their hands, so I don't really think that the conversation should revolve around decent indecent rhetoric. This is where it gets interesting. We have a conservative gay guy who supports the idea that pride is no longer necessary. Can you imagine that? Because let's check it out.
I organized one of the most successful prides in my community in 2016. I invited groups that were outside the norm, like the NRA and the local GOP, including the Democrats, because for me it was important that this event reach the entire community more than just saying we are a sexual being. We wanted to educate the people. I was told I was never allowed to help them again because how dare I invite a hate group like the NRA when all I wanted to do was arm LGBT people and educate them on how to protect themselves. As you guys said, there are those people who would hurt us. I live in a very, very red community. Mike Garcia is my representative.
So he lives in a predominantly conservative community, he says that. So his ability to express his identity without issue is commendable. It shows progress. It really does.
I dress like this to galas, big government galas, realtor galas. No one has said anything to me, and in fact, all I get is positive affirmation that, hey, you're living your best life. And I say it's not really necessary because I can walk down my street in heels and braids.
In California.
I've done this in Michigan, I've done this in Tennessee, I've done this in Missouri.
And you
I've
walk
done
around
this
like this in all those states?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And I have had absolutely no issues.
But his point about not feeling the need for pride events, especially when you can confidently walk down the streets in heels and braids without issue, is very interesting. You know what I mean?
And I think we all want everyone to feel the way that you feel, like you don't need it, but that's just not the case.
Exactly. People, even though it's America, are more comfortable with people who look like this, for instance, on stages than on streets. And these people still can't exist in public without the threat of being physically attacked. It's also clear that he's likely not surrounded by uneducated people, even within the conservative community, and he's no longer in high school environment. I mean, where you might face bullying for your appearance. So girl, we've got more questions to discuss. LGB should be separated from the TQIA+. Drag shows are not acceptable for minors. By the way, you can find a video on the topic here on my channel. I made it a while ago. Would I date a trans man? LGBTQIA+ topics should be taught in schools. And the most interesting one, monogamous relationships are difficult to find in the gay community. We'll be delving into these topics in my upcoming video, which will be part 2 of Samantha's reacting to this fantastic episode of Middle Ground. Jubilee is doing an excellent job. Thank you, Jubilee. Thank you so much for providing us with such great content. If you found Samantha's content as awesome as I have, why not consider supporting her through Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon? All links gonna be below. But girl, if you're still here, I must say that the most valuable thing I can receive from you isn't just money. It's those thumbs up under this video, and of course, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you soon. Bye.